My name is Epiphany. I am from a small town near Bata, in Equatorial Guinea. My husband's name is Moses. He is a kind and quiet man who works as a teacher. We got married in 2021, and after 2 years of marriage, we had our first baby boy. We named him Junior. When I gave birth, Moses was always by my side. He held my hand when I cried from pain, and he smiled when he heard our baby's first cry. For the first 3 months after birth, our home was filled with love, peace, and the sweet smell of baby milk. Moses helped me every night, feeding Junior and singing him to sleep, but deep inside me, something started to change. Before I got married, I used to work as a secretary at a small office in Malabo. That was where I first met Baltesa in Gonga. He was a tall man with sharp eyes, always wearing expensive suits. Everyone respected him because he was the leader of the National Financial Investigation Agency. He had power, money, and influence. He spoke softly but with confidence. Every time he passed my desk, he would greet me and sometimes smile. I admired him secretly, but I never thought we would meet again. After I left the job to marry Moses one afternoon, 3 months after giving birth, I received a message from an old coworker. She told me that Baltesa was asking about me. He wanted me to help with some translation work for a report he was preparing for an international conference. At first, I hesitated. Moses was still at work, and I was home with the baby. But I missed feeling useful, feeling like myself again. I agreed to meet Baltesa the next day. When I saw him again, he looked even more powerful than before. His car, his clothes, his perfume, everything showed success. He congratulated me on becoming a mother and asked how I was doing. I told him about Moses, about the baby, and how my life had become calm but repetitive. He looked at me and said, "Epiphany, you are too bright to be hidden away at home." Those words touched something in me. No one had said that to me in months. We worked together that day, finishing the translations, and he paid me generously. Before I left, he held my hand just a little too long and whispered, "You haven't changed, Epiphany. You're still the woman who caught my attention years ago." I went home confused, my heart beating fast. Moses was there with Junior, smiling, tired but happy. I felt guilty, immediately guilty for the thoughts that were already forming in my mind. Baltesa kept calling me for more work, short meetings, he called them. Sometimes they were at his office, sometimes in quiet restaurants. I started lying to Moses, telling him I was visiting my cousin or going to the market. One afternoon, during a heavy rain, I was stuck in Baltesa's office. We talked for hours about life, dreams, and mistakes. He listened to me, something I had been missing. I cried when I told him I felt invisible since the baby was born. He stood up, touched my face, and said softly, "You deserve to be seen." And that was the moment I crossed the line. I told myself it was just a mistake, that it would never happen again. But one mistake became another, and soon, we were meeting in secret whenever Moses was at work. At home, I was the perfect wife and mother. I cooked, cleaned, took care of Junior, and smiled whenever Moses looked at me. He never suspected anything. He trusted me completely. Sometimes I hated myself for what I was doing. I looked at Moses and remembered how he stood beside me in the hospital, how he whispered, "You're my world, Epiphany." But then, when Baltesa called, I felt something different: excitement, danger, and attention. Months went by. My lies grew. I told myself I was doing nothing wrong because Baltesa cared for me. But deep inside, I knew it was betrayal. One evening, Moses came home earlier than usual. I had just returned from meeting Baltesa. My perfume was different, my hair was done. Moses looked at me and smiled. "You look beautiful tonight," he said. "Thank you," I answered softly. He held our baby and told me, "I'm so lucky to have you." At that moment, my chest hurt. I wanted to tell him everything, but I couldn't. His love was pure, and I had broken it that night. As I watched him sleep beside Junior's crib, I realized how far I had gone. I didn't recognize myself anymore. It was a hot afternoon in Malabo, one of those days when the sun shines too bright, and even the wind feels tired. I remember I was wearing a simple blue dress, the same one Moses bought for me before the baby was born. I had gone to meet Balthasar at his office for what I thought would be just another translation session. He was waiting for me in his office on the top floor. The air conditioner was on, but the room still smelled like heat and expensive perfume. Papers were neatly placed on the glass table, and there was a small cup of coffee waiting for me. "You look tired, Epiphany," he said, his voice calm and deep. "Motherhood must be hard work." I smiled politely. "Yes, it is. But I'm learning every day." He nodded and sat down across from me. I noticed his eyes, they were different that day. Softer. Curious. They didn't look at the papers, they looked at me. For hours we worked together. Sometimes our hands touched when we passed documents. Each time, my heart beat a little faster. I told myself it meant nothing, that I was only imagining it. But the air between us grew heavier, filled with unspoken words. Later that day, the sky suddenly turned dark. The wind began to blow, and heavy rain started falling. The noise of the storm was loud against the glass windows. I got up quickly, looking outside. "I think I should go before it gets worse," I said. Balthasar stood up too. "You can't go in this weather," he said. "It's dangerous. Stay until the rain stops." He took off his jacket and placed it gently around my shoulders. His hands brushed my arms, and in that single touch, I felt a kind of warmth I hadn't felt in months. We stood by the window, watching the rain pour down on the streets below. Everything outside was grey and blurred, but inside that office, it felt like time had stopped. He spoke softly. "Do you ever miss your old life, Epiphany? Before you got married?" I hesitated. "Sometimes," I said honestly. "I love my family, but I miss feeling like myself." He nodded. "I understand. You gave up a lot for your family. That's what good women do. But good women also deserve to feel alive." When he said those words, I felt my heart tremble. No one had said something like that to me in so long. Moses was loving, but lately his love felt like a routine, kind, but quiet, always about the baby, never about me. The rain outside grew stronger. Thunder echoed in the distance. I turned to face him. Our eyes met and stayed there for a long time. I could feel my breath shaking. "Balthasar," I whispered, not sure what to say next. He moved closer, just a step. His voice was low. "You don't have to say anything." And before I could think or move away, he leaned in and kissed me. It wasn't fast or rough, it was slow, careful, and full of emotion. I froze at first, my mind shouting no but my heart whispering yes. I felt his hand on my face, warm and steady. I closed my eyes. For a few seconds, everything outside disappeared, the storm, the noise, the guilt. It was just that kiss, full of something forbidden and sweet. When he pulled away, I couldn't look at him. I just stared at the floor, breathing hard. "I'm sorry," he said softly. "I shouldn't have done that." But the truth was, I didn't want to stop him. "It's okay," I whispered, even though it wasn't. That night, when I went home, Moses was sitting on the sofa with Junior asleep in his arms. He smiled when he saw me. "You're back early," he said. I smiled too, forcing it. Yes. The rain stopped quickly. I sat beside him, pretending everything was normal, but inside, my thoughts were far away, still in that office, still feeling the touch of Balthasar's lips. When I went to bed that night, I couldn't sleep. I looked at Moses's peaceful face in the dim light. He looked tired but gentle. He had given me everything: love, a home, a child. Yet my mind betrayed him, and that's when I started to think something I never thought I would. What if I had married Balthasar instead? Asterisk. The thought scared me, but it also stayed with me. I imagined what my life would be if I had chosen him, living in a big house, traveling, being part of his powerful world. No crying baby at night, no financial stress, no tired evenings. Just confidence, passion, and excitement. Every time Moses left for work, that thought grew stronger. Balthasar began to call me more often after that day. He would text, "How are you feeling today? Did you sleep well? You're on my mind." Epiphany. Those small messages meant everything to me. They made me feel wanted, seen, alive again. I started dressing better, wearing perfume, fixing my hair. Moses noticed it but didn't suspect anything. He thought I was just happy to be a mother again. One evening, Moses said, "You've been glowing lately. I love seeing you smile again." My heart broke when he said that, because I knew my smile wasn't for him anymore. Weeks turned into months. Every time I saw Balthasar, I felt like I was stepping into another life, one filled with excitement and luxury. When he looked at me, I felt powerful, beautiful, and desired. One afternoon, as we sat together at a cafe near the sea, he said, "If I had met you before Moses did, I would have made you my wife." I laughed softly, but inside, something deep in me whispered, "Maybe you still can." From that moment, I started to wish that I had married him instead of Moses. I imagined waking up beside him in a big house, traveling with him to meetings in Europe, wearing elegant dresses instead of my simple ones. I imagined a life without guilt, just love and pride, but deep down, I knew it was only a dream. I had a husband, a child, and a promise. Yet the dream wouldn't go away. During the day, I was Moses's loyal wife, cooking, caring for Junior, smiling at the neighbors. At night, when the house was quiet, I sat by the window, looking at the stars, thinking of Balthasar. Sometimes I imagined what his hands felt like, how his voice sounded when he called my name. I would whisper softly into the darkness, "Balthasar," and then I would cry, because I knew how wrong it was. I started living two lives, one in the light, one in the shadows. One belonged to Moses, the man who loved me. The other belonged to Balthasar, the man who made me feel alive. Now, when I think about that first kiss, I know it was the beginning of everything: the passion, the lies, the guilt, the secret that still follows me. Sometimes I still remember how the rain sounded that day, how the world outside disappeared when his lips touched mine. And sometimes, when Moses smiles at me with love and trust in his eyes, I wonder if time could turn back, would I still let it happen? Maybe yes. Maybe no, because that kiss showed me a part of myself I didn't know existed, a woman torn between love and desire, between loyalty and loneliness, and that's a part of me that will never truly go away. After that first kiss, everything between me and Balthasar changed. It was as if a door had opened that I could never close again. Every time I went to his office, there was a feeling, an invisible fire between us. We didn't talk about what happened that day, but we both knew it was there. Balthasar started inviting me to lunch more often. Sometimes it was at his office, sometimes at beautiful hotels where few people would recognize us. He treated me with care and respect, but also with a kind of power that made my heart shake. He would hold my hand across the table and say things like, "You make me forget the whole world when I look at you." His words were dangerous but sweet. I wanted to believe them, even when I knew I shouldn't. When he made me feel alive, there was something about Balthasar that was different from Moses. Moses was kind, quiet, and patient. He loved gently, simply, like a calm river. But Balthasar, he was like the ocean, strong, deep, unpredictable. When I was with him, I felt like a new woman, confident, brave, and beautiful. He made me laugh again, something I hadn't done in months. When he looked at me, I felt seen in a way Moses never managed to do. After the baby came, sometimes, when we sat together in silence, his hand would rest on mine, and that simple touch was enough to make my whole body tremble. He knew how to make me feel special, like I was the only woman in his world. One afternoon, after a long meeting, he took me for a drive through Malebo's quiet streets. His car smelled of leather and cologne. As the sun went down, he stopped near the sea, where the waves crashed against the rocks. The sky was painted orange and gold. He turned to me and said, "Epiphany, I want to do something for you. You've helped me with my reports, but it's not just about that. You've given me inspiration. I looked at him, unsure of what he meant. What do you mean? I asked softly. He smiled. I want to open a big supermarket in Malabo, a beautiful one, with your name on it. You'll manage it, and I'll make sure it becomes one of the best in the city, I gasped. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. A supermarket. My own business. That was something I had always dreamed about but never thought possible. You would do that for me. Yes, he said, taking my hand. Because you deserve it. You deserve to be independent, to have power, to live the life you've always wanted. Those words echoed in my heart all night. When I got home and saw Moses sitting on our small couch, tired from his teaching job, I looked at our tiny home and thought, this is love. Yes, but it's a small love. Balthasar was offering me a bigger life, a life full of light, dreams, and freedom. Days turned into weeks, and Balthasar began showing me the plans for the supermarket, maps, budgets, and designs. He told me he had already spoken to investors and government partners. I couldn't stop smiling when I thought about it at night. While Moses slept, I imagined myself standing in front of my own store, wearing a suit, greeting customers, being called Madam Epiphany. I imagined people respecting me, admiring me, and when I thought of Balthasar, my heart would ache with longing. He had given me attention, power, and a dream, things I had never received from anyone else. Sometimes, when he held me close, he whispered, you should have been mine, Epiphany. If only time had brought us together earlier. Those words sank deep into me. I started to believe them. I started to wish that time really had been different. At home, Moses remained the same, gentle, loving, predictable. He never shouted and never complained. But his world was small. He talked about school, about bills, about the baby. Sometimes, when he kissed me goodnight, I closed my eyes and saw Balthasar's face instead. And that made me feel both alive and guilty at the same time. With Moses, everything was too calm. With Balthasar, everything was alive, dangerous, exciting. I began to notice every difference. Moses's hands were tired from work, Balthasar's hands were strong and confident. Moses spoke about small dreams, Balthasar spoke about building empires. Moses made me feel safe, Balthasar made me feel powerful, and slowly, I started to believe that maybe I had married the wrong man. One night, after meeting Balthasar, I came home late. Moses was already asleep. I stood by the bed and watched him breathe. Junior was in his crib, peaceful and innocent. The first whispered softly into the dark, I love you, Moses, but sometimes I wish I had met him first. Then I sat on the floor and cried quietly. I cried because I knew I was living in two worlds, one built on truth, and the other built on lies and desire. Balthasar had promised me a future that shone like gold, but that gold came with a shadow, the shadow of betrayal. As time went on, the supermarket project became real. Balthasar started sending me photos of the land, contracts, and business papers. He told me that soon, everything would be ready. But inside me, the storm grew stronger. Every time I saw Moses with our baby, my guilt grew heavier. I remember it was a quiet Saturday morning in Malabo. The air was hot, and the streets were bright with sunshine. I remember that day clearly, every sound, every smell, every heartbeat. I woke up early, dressed carefully, and told Moses that I was going to visit my old university friend whose husband had been sick. It was a lie, of course. I had already planned to meet Balthasar near the city center, at a small cafe close to the market. Moses didn't question me. He smiled softly as he handed me some money for transport. Send my greetings to your friend, he said. His trust felt like a knife in my heart. But I smiled anyway and kissed his cheek. I will, thank you. Then I walked out of the house, not knowing that this would be the day my entire world would fall apart. Balthasar was waiting for me near the corner of Independence Avenue, wearing his usual dark suit and sunglasses. He looked handsome, confident, powerful, the man who had turned my world upside down. When he saw me, he smiled. You look beautiful today, Epiphany. We walked together down the street, talking quietly. The city was busy, people selling fruits, taxis honking, music playing from small shops. I felt free beside him, like I was walking in a dream. We stopped near a quiet corner where tall buildings hid us from most people. He touched my hand gently, and I looked up at him. His eyes were warm, his smile soft. "I missed you," he whispered. I wanted to say something, but before I could, he leaned forward and kissed me right there, in that corner of Malabo, under the bright afternoon sun. It was a kiss full of longing, the kind that steals your breath and fills your heart with both joy and fear. For a moment, I forgot everything: my husband, my baby, my guilt. It was just us. But what I didn't know was that someone was watching. While we were kissing, across the street, a car had stopped quietly. Inside that car was Moses. He had left home 2 hours after me because something in his heart had felt wrong. Maybe it was the way I avoided his eyes that morning, or maybe it was God whispering to him that something was not right. He had decided to follow me just to be sure, and when he saw me in the corner with Balthasar, his heart broke into pieces. He couldn't believe his eyes. The woman he trusted, the woman he loved, the mother of his child, was standing in another man's arms. He didn't shout. He didn't move. He just sat there, frozen, tears filling his eyes. Then he slowly took out his phone and began recording. He wanted proof, not because he wanted to embarrass me, but because he needed to see that the nightmare was real. The video showed me smiling, holding Balthasar's hand, and kissing him. That moment, my world began to collapse, even though I didn't know it yet. After our meeting, I went home as if nothing had happened. Moses was sitting quietly in the living room when I entered. He didn't smile. His face looked strange, calm, but cold. "How is your friend's husband?" he asked suddenly. My heart almost stopped. "He's better," I said, forcing a smile. He nodded slowly, his eyes fixed on mine. "That's good," he said softly. "Because I saw something today. Something you might want to explain." Then he reached into his pocket and took out his phone. He pressed play, and there it was, the video: me, Balthasar. That kiss in the corner of Malabo. I couldn't breathe. My hands started shaking. I wanted to speak, but no words came out. "Moses, please." He raised his hand to stop me. "Don't. I trusted you more than anyone in this world, Epiphany. You told me you were going to see your sick friend. But you were with him." His voice was calm, but full of pain. That calmness was worse than anger. "How long?" he asked. "How long have you been lying to me?" Tears fell from my eyes. "It's not what you think," I said weakly, but he shook his head. "It's exactly what I think." Then he stood up and walked out of the house, leaving me alone with the sound of my own crying. In the days that followed, Moses didn't speak much. He still came home for the baby, but he slept in the other room. The silence between us was heavy. I tried to call Balthasar, but he didn't answer at first. Then, one evening, he called back. "Epiphany, we have a problem," he said. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice trembling. He sighed. "You remember when you used to shower in my apartment? I sometimes left the camera on in the bathroom, not to harm you, but to remember you." I froze. My knees almost gave out. "You what?" "Don't worry," he said quickly. "No one has seen the videos. They're safe with me. But if your husband causes trouble, it could get complicated." My heart raced. What had started as love had now turned into something dark and dangerous. I felt sick. I felt trapped. The man I thought cared for me had been recording me without asking. And now, the man who loved me, my husband, knew everything. Rumors started spreading in the neighborhood. People whispered when I walked by. Someone had seen the video on Moses's phone, or maybe he had shown it to one of his friends out of anger. I never knew for sure. Moses stopped talking to me completely. He only spoke to the baby. Every night, I cried quietly, thinking about how one small lie had destroyed everything. The love, the trust, the peace, all gone. Balthasar tried to comfort me at first, but even he started to pull away. His words became colder. The supermarket project slowed down. He became distant, busy, unreachable, and that's when I realized I had lost both men. The one who loved me, and the one who made me dream. One night, Moses finally spoke to me. "Epiphany," he said, his voice breaking, "I don't hate you. But I can't live like this. Every time I look at you, I see that video." I tried to touch his hand, but he pulled away. "Please, Moses. Forgive me. He looked at me for a long time, then said softly, I can forgive you, but I can't forget. And I can't share my home with a stranger. He packed his bags the next day. He took Junior with him to his mother's house. When the door closed behind them, the silence was louder than any storm. I sat on the floor, crying until I had no tears left. That was the day I lost everything: my husband, my family, and my peace. After Moses left, the house became a quiet, empty shell. The baby's laughter was gone. The smell of his clothes, his soft songs at night, all gone. I would wake up in the morning and still prepare breakfast for 2 people out of habit, then realize I was alone. Every sound in that house reminded me of what I had lost. Every corner whispered one truth: you did this to yourself, Epiphany. But the worst part wasn't even the silence. The worst part was what came after, when the videos began to spread. And it started quietly: a message on my phone from an unknown number. There was a short clip attached. When I opened it, my whole body went cold. It was the video. The one Moses had recorded, the one of me kissing Baltasar in the corner of Malabo. Then another message came: people are talking. You should be careful who you trust. One dropped my phone. My hands were shaking. My heart was beating like a drum inside my chest. By evening, whispers had already begun in my neighborhood. When I went to the market, women stopped talking as I passed. When I tried to greet them, they turned their faces away. Someone had sent the video to a community group on WhatsApp. By the next morning, half of Malabo had seen it. My family called me. My sister was crying. Epiphany, what have you done? People are saying terrible things about you. My old friends stopped answering my calls. Even the small tailoring shop I used to visit refused to serve me. I lost my dignity, my reputation, my peace. To the world, I was no longer Epiphany, the wife of Moses. I became Epiphany, the woman from the video. Moses didn't call me. He had blocked my number. I couldn't even see Junior anymore. His family told me I wasn't welcome at their home. Sometimes, at night, I would sit by the window and stare at the city lights of Malabo. I used to love that view. It reminded me of hope. Now it only reminded me of everything I had lost. As if that wasn't enough, another storm came soon after. Rumors started spreading that Baltasar had secretly recorded not just me, but other women too, women of power, women whose husbands were government leaders, judges, and ministers. One evening, I got another message, this time from a journalist I used to know. Epiphany, he said, you should be careful. Your name is connected to something big. Baltasar is in trouble. I didn't understand at first. But then I saw the news on TV. Baltasar Ngonga, leader of the National Financial Investigation Agency, accused of misconduct and illegal recordings. My heart dropped. The report said he had been recording private meetings, personal moments, and even relationships with women who trusted him without their permission. Some of those women were the wives of senior officials in the government. The story exploded across the country. It was November 2024 when everything finally came crashing down. One night, the police raided Baltasar's luxurious villa in Malabo. They found multiple laptops, cameras, then phones, all filled with secret recordings. Some showed him with government officials' wives. Others were business meetings where he had been collecting information for blackmail. The whole country was shocked. Baltasar, the man everyone once respected, the man who seemed untouchable, was suddenly exposed as a liar and manipulator. He was arrested and taken to Black Beach Prison, the same place where many powerful men had fallen before him. The next day, his face was everywhere on newspapers, television, and online. How his fall destroyed me again. At first, I thought maybe his arrest would help me. Maybe people would finally see that I wasn't the only one he had fooled. But instead, it made things worse. The investigators released a list of names, women connected to Baltasar. My name was among them. I became part of the scandal all over again. Journalists came to my house, knocking on my door. Miss Epiphany, did you know Baltasar was recording you? How long was your relationship with him? I couldn't even step outside. Some neighbors laughed behind my back, others pitied me. My reputation, already broken, was now completely gone. Even when I walked in public, I could feel eyes following me, whispers saying, "That's her." The woman from the videos. Balthasar's woman. Months passed. The supermarket project was cancelled. The investors withdrew their money. The land that was supposed to become my dream was now empty, just a patch of dirt and weeds. I tried to find a job, but no one wanted to hire me. My name brought shame. Sometimes I would walk by the school where Moses used to teach, just to see if I could catch a glimpse of him. Once, I saw him walking with Junior. Our son had grown taller. I wanted to run to them, to say sorry, to hold my child again. But Moses saw me and turned away. That was the moment I truly understood what it means to lose everything. Before his trial, Balthasar managed to send me a letter through one of his lawyers. It said, "Epiphany, I am sorry for what happened. You were never supposed to get hurt. I loved you, but I was too proud, too powerful, too blind. I thought I could control everything, but I was wrong. Maybe I was foolish. But I am still human. And I will start again the woman I became now. When I look back, I understand something important. The lies, the love, the power, all of it was temporary, but the lessons stayed. Balthasar taught me about desire and danger. Moses taught me about love and forgiveness. And the scandal taught me about the price of secrets. The videos destroyed my name, yes, but they also forced me to rebuild myself, not as someone's wife or someone's secret, but as a woman who survived her own mistakes. Sometimes, when I walk by the sea and feel the wind on my face, I whisper to myself, "You fell, Epiphany, but you stood up again." And that, perhaps, is the real ending of my story. Not the kiss, not the betrayal, not even the videos, but the quiet strength that comes after losing everything and learning how to live again.